Today I want to get super practical with you and give you some things that really helped Samantha and I early on. This isn't this big riveting, you know, blog where I'm going to take you to this real dark emotional place. I just really want to help you with some practical tools that one of the best things that we did early on, once the initial chaos and trauma subsided a little bit, was finding some coping mechanisms, because you can't just stay in the enormity of the moment that you feel, especially as a betrayed spouse. But also as an unfaithful, there was times I would get stuck in the enormity of it. I would cry like a baby at how much pain I had caused, the uncertainty of my future, the uncertainty of my marriage, my kids, what were they going to grow up feeling like towards their dad? Was I headed for divorce? I mean, all these things you contemplate every day. I think as a team, as an organization, we do a lot to really hit those places, but sometimes we don't do enough to the practical. And I'll tell you, early on, and again, coming from a faith background, I felt like God gave me a couple of key relationships that actually ended up being a great place for me to be able to find some coping skills. It just so happened that about 3 doors down from my house, when we first moved to Austin, I met a gentleman that rode motocross just like I did. And we immediately became pretty good friends. And I started riding with him. And one of the biggest coping mechanisms for me early on in recovery was riding motocross. I would ride about 2 times a week. I would go out on Wednesdays and maybe a Saturday or a Sunday, all the time with this new friend of mine. And I would push it pretty far. I mean, I would ride hard because it was an adrenaline release, and I am kind of an adrenaline junkie, but it was an opportunity to not focus on Samantha, my kids, the future, the hopelessness, the financial ruin that we were in. It was just a chance to think about what gear I was switching into, how fast I could take a turn, how close I could come to the feeling like I was going to really die or hurt myself and actually make the jump, or actually hit a speed I never thought I could hit at an angle I never thought I could hit. I mean, there was so much fun, but there was also such a coping mechanism to it, because I was dealing with life through an outlet that gave me joy, but helped me to just kind of take a deep breath. Another kind of coping mechanism is baseball. My kids were young enough to where when we got to Austin, they just were starting t-ball. And I didn't become, crazy baseball father, regardless of what some of you may think, but I used it as an outlet to just have a great time. Samantha felt comfortable with me coaching, and it was just an awesome opportunity to cope with life, to just be out there in beautiful weather and even terrible weather, and just be trying to manage, these young boys at the time was a great coping skill. It was a great outlet. There wasn't any reminders or triggers or intrusive thoughts or feelings of financial ruin or chaos or hopelessness or shame or condemnation when I was out on the field with these boys. It was just an escape. Now for Samantha, she had some outlets too. I mean, she started to go on walks. She started to do yoga. She started even doing some running. She began to kind of do some rehab work around our house and going on Craigslist and buying stuff and rehabbing it. I mean, she started to get creative in her own world too, where there was an ability for her to find a way to cope with the pressures and the pain and the hurt of life through an outlet that gave her peace and a chance to just kind of breathe out and not remain stuck in the complexity of emotions and trauma. Oddly enough, to kind of let you into a side of our personal life, is Samantha and the kids started fostering dogs. And so we would work with the local shelter, and we would bring these puppies or these dogs, and we would bring them into the home and foster them for a week or a month or even 6 months sometimes. And then my daughter started training these dogs, and it was a great joy because in a humorous way. The dog wasn't unfaithful or betrayed. I mean, the dog was just a great focal point to have a good time with and enjoy and just relax and escape. It was a coping mechanism. We even had a couple of therapy dogs that my daughter learned how to train to be able to be therapy dogs. So you want to talk about a great coping mechanism is have a therapy dog in your house that you're training. I mean, it was phenomenal. Now, I want to give you a good disclaimer. If your hobby or if your coping mechanism causes your spouse to feel unsafe, I'm sorry, you've got to either take a break from it, you've got to put it on the shelf, or you've got to find a new outlet. For example, if you love your job, but you had an affair with your coworker, or you had an affair in a weird way that ties to your job, if you think your job is going to be an outlet, I'm sorry, it's going to be one big trigger or reminder to your spouse. And let me be the first one to graciously tell you, that's on you. And that's not your spouse's controlling tendencies because they're hurt. No, you're creating a lack of safety, which is going to only make your betrayed spouse at home uncomfortable, upset, angry. It is not a coping skill that is a safe outlet for your marriage right now. Let me give you an example. I loved to preach and be on staff at a church, and there was a moment where I was being asked to come back on staff at this church here in Austin. And I knew it was going to create opportunity to speak and do a lot of great things, but it was so close to my affair and the lifestyle that I was in when I had my affair that I had to turn it down and say, no, I just can't do that right now. That's on me. That's not Samantha's insecurity. That is the consequences that I had to embrace as an unfaithful spouse. If you're a gym rat and you had an affair with someone that went to the gym or that worked at the gym or was a member at that gym, I'm sorry, you're probably going to have to get creative to try and get out of that membership or find a new gym or take a break from that working out or find a weight set or some kind of opportunity to work out at home. But if you want to create safety in your recovery, your coping skills, your coping mechanism, whatever your outlet is, has got to fit within the guardrails of a safe recovery, or else it's not going to be a coping skill. You may think that it is, but it's only going to cause more damage and more pain for your recovery. Now, you may not be wired like me, but I'll tell you, there was a time when I would be in third gear on a Honda 450, and I would jump pretty far, pretty high in the air, and there was this adrenaline as I would yell and scream while I was flying through the air. It was priceless. Yes, sometimes it was filled with anger and resentment at God, at life, at my circumstances, absolutely, but I was getting it out. I was confronting the beast, and I think at some level, you've got to find an outlet that you may not be yelling or screaming in this, breathing out moment of release, but it will get you to maybe be distracted. It'll get you to maybe not get caught up in the moment for so long. It'll help you find some freedom and some peace. Now, here's one mistake I made, is that I tried to use movies as that release. And if you've been in recovery for any length of time, you understand that so many movies are filled with infidelity or addiction. I would highly recommend that you vet out movies and be able to really read through reviews. And there's so many different companies out there that review movies. If it has anything to do with infidelity, stay away from it as far as you can. So today, I hope you can find an outlet. I hope you can find a way to not stay stuck in the moment and to cope with the pain and the hurt. I know it's palatable. I know it seems like you'll never get beyond this, but I promise you, you will. I promise you there are ways for you to be able to confront the beast and extinguish some of the overwhelming emotion that you deal with on both sides.